Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show, Strange Reality with Dave Emmons. And we always have strange things that's going on around the world, and we have guests that know a lot of different things. And I'm glad that you're interested. Facebook, I get a good audience with Facebook, and I appreciate all of you that's viewing the topics that we cover and our guests. And our guests are great guests, and I got a great guest tonight, and you'll probably know her if any of you watch, the History Channel, you will know this lady. And before I even mention her, and I hope everybody's outside and having a good time in this hot, nice weather, but and getting away from all this stuff about the politics and the world condition, and also UFO disclosure. And this lady here has a lot of proof on this UFO and ET subject, and I do too. But it's slow to trickle out there to everybody, and I hope everybody catches on. But my guest tonight, I'm sure you're going to recognize her. It's Katie Paige, and she has personal ties to High Strangeness Ranch in Colorado, now known as the Rocky Mountain Ranch. You've seen her in TV and History Channel. In UFO folklore, it was known as the Clearview Ranch and predates the infamous Skinwalker Ranch by over a decade. This is what motivated her interest in ufology, to find answers to her experiences, to try and uncover the truth as to what was happening there. Katie can be seen on History Channel's Beyond Skinwalker Ranch, and that's where I saw her. I saw her actually a couple of times. And UFO Witness, Gaia's Beyond Belief with George Norrie, Ancient Aliens, Small Town Monster. She's been on all the shows I'm not able to get on.
Oh,
But I don't care. I'm just telling my truth and trying to enlighten people to it. And Small Town Monsters, On the Trail of UFOs, Night Visitors, and Ron James film Accidental Truth. Katie conducts independent investigations and research through her Rocky Mountain Ranch Research Foundation. She has been a presenter at several conferences, has appeared on many radio shows and podcasts, including Coast to Coast with George Knapp, Spaced Out Radio, UAP Studies podcast, and many more. Katie is an author of Letters of Love and Light, 4 decades of UFO encounters, experiences, and sightings shared with ufologist R. Leo Sprinkle. And we'll be talking about this man. I know Katie knows him quite well. I think he's passed though, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
unfortunately, we lost him. Yeah.
She is currently writing her second book, The Rocky Mountain Ranch, Crafts, Cattle, and Cryptids and Cover-Ups. Katie holds a bachelor's of science in visual communication. Katie Paige, welcome aboard, and thank you for coming on my show. I really appreciate it, and having a person like you that's credible and works hard, and your success and enlightening people. Neither one of us are getting rich, but we're enlightening people.
Right. Yeah. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here on Strange Reality. Thanks for having me so much. And I love that you said, I hope you're all out there enjoying the beautiful weather. It's a great day. I'm up actually outside of Colorado Springs behind NORAD up in the Rocky Mountains
Mhm.
near the Woodland Park area. So we're like 20 degrees cooler usually than down in the city. So it's a
Right.
beautiful day today. And I love that we stay cooler up here. But I don't even have the news. I don't even have the ability to really turn it on. And I haven't for over a year. And I kind of know what's going on out there, but boy, have I been a better person for turning that noise off. We
Yeah.
all need to break away from that, especially during an election year. It's just crazy town.
Right. I have a lot of spiritual people that's coming on my show the next 2 weeks. I've had a couple of them in the past 2 or 3 weeks, and I do that because I think people need to be enlightened. They need
Yeah,
they need some positive energy about what's going on in the world out there. And we also
right.
know, and Katie, you know this too, there's been an increase in UFOs, UAPs, whatever you want to call them. I call them UFOs. There's been an increase in the number of them, so something is going on, or something's going to happen, and we might have another reset. I've talked about that on the show too, about a dimensional and a reality reset. And I think you got a couple of paragraphs here I want to read off it because it kind of hits me pretty well. I want to ask you, Katie, what are you doing now? And I know you got something going on tonight. Okay.
Yeah, tonight actually Tonight is the premiere of the season 2 of Beyond Skinwalker. It's episode 5. It's called The Landing Site, which is so for season 2, the Rocky Mountain Ranch did 2 episodes. This will be the first of season 2, and I haven't even seen it yet, so I'll be watching it all along with you guys. I don't know if this airs tonight live, but if not, this is Tuesday. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that tonight. Yeah.
That would be fine. Is William Shatner, is he there tonight or?
Oh, no, no, no. That was another project I just did. I got asked to be on a episode of William Shatner's Beyond Belief. And so that was a fun little project to do. And I'm not sure when that will air, but we talked about like infectious diseases coming from outside of our planet. And, my belief on that is like, I think sometimes that can happen as a byproduct. I don't think ETs are coming down and intentionally harming, or at least not in the last, 50, 60, 70 years. Maybe it happened years back, but even that's out for debate. So there's all sorts of microbes and things hitting our planet all the time. I don't necessarily think it's ET's intention to hurt any of us that way.
I don't think so either, Kate.
Right.
And I've had all my experiences. I haven't been hurt or, damaged, or
Right.
I've been scared. We
Yeah.
approach this stuff where it's just
Mhm.
like you. You're pretty brave. You approach it, and your curiosity keeps driving you at it. And
Mhm.
myself is I'm the same way. A lot of people say you're brave, and I said no, I'm stupid. I keep pushing for more
I call
information.
it dogged. I'm dogged.
Yeah. Okay. Also with Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, Stephen Bassett, I signed up for that too. Have you done any
Yeah.
work with them yet?
I had a great experience at Contact in the Desert this year. I was on a panel for the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, and Earl Grey and Earl Grey is state director of a chapter in California, and he's on the ERT team for MUFON. Great guy, great guy. And we're sitting up there on the Hollywood Disclosure panel, and he's talking about his UFO origin stories and his mother working for Howard Hughes and this underground location she was brought to back when she was working for him, and that place had remained a mystery. And I'm sitting on the panel kind of knowing I had just recently had a trip to the Mount Wilson Ranch out there in Nevada, and I know what they're digging underground, and I know, there's rumors of deep underground structures and things at Mount Wilson Ranch, and I'm like, perhaps that's the site of where his mother was. And there's some evidence that they're pulling up out of the ground from Mount Wilson that kind of makes that pretty highly likely. So that was just a cool moment for Earl and I at Contact in the Desert there with Hollywood Disclosure. But Dan Harari and Steve Bassett that run the Hollywood Disclosure, they're doing great work with that, because really, they want to, if there's going to be a UFO presence out there talking about the UFO topic, movies and TV programs, they really want to bring it as close to reality as they can. I mean, this topic is amazing enough without sensationalizing it. You don't really have to do that because it's already sensational. And so I think it's a really good project that they're doing there.
Don't you just hate the disinformation and misinformation and the CGI stuff that's going on? It just kind of pollutes the real stories. And
Right. I think that's done intentionally to confuse us, to make people like, you know what, it's all CGI, it's all faked. There's nothing to any of this. And we know through the history that that is not the case. But everything right now at this day and age, we're just getting information so fast. And really, we just need to slow down, take deep breaths, and really do the history and the research, because, you know, even I always say, like, even if you got a really good photograph right now, I don't think anybody's going to care or believe you, because they're like, it's CGI, it's faked, it's this or whatever. So I don't know.
yeah, I got a reptilian looking into my trail camera on my kitchen table. And well, I talked to Linda Moulton Hall, and I called her and talked to her about it and
Hmm.
looked at it. And she couldn't make it out, but it's actually, I was told by another investigator, it's actually a reptilian looking into the camera. And Linda asked good questions. She's really good. She's really good at
Yeah,
interviewing and asking questions. She said, Dave, how did you know to put that camera out on that table? I said, because the night before my motion sensor were going crazy. And I said, I knew something was up. So I put it out there to
right.
find out what it was. And then I found 2 or 3 different shots of different ETs. So, but that didn't go nowhere. Linda couldn't even make it out. I could. I said, I see. It's that's what you're saying. That's what happens. People can see it, other people can't. Maybe it's enlightened people or people with open minds, consciousness,
Right.
can relate to these things.
Well, our brains are fantastic machines, and I know we have the pareidolia where our brains want to make sense of what we're looking at, if we're seeing a dog in the cloud or,
Mhm.
and sometimes if you zoom in and you're looking for Sasquatch or something, the leaves can tricks
Right.
on your mind. So, a lot of people will write those. I just recently was going through the old photographs from the Colorado ranch, and in the window, it looks like a gray to me.
Mhm.
But then I show it to other people because I haven't put it out there anywhere yet. Because I'm like, do you see what I see? So
Yeah.
I kind of have the same similar kind of
Yeah.
experience. And
Right.
some people will see it and some people won't. And maybe it's just pareidolia. I don't know. When you're an
Yeah.
experiencer and you have had things happen to you,
You
I'm not trying to prove anything to anybody. It just is what it is.
you can be trigger happy though, and think
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
that's what the message is. I
Yeah.
keep a note, a ledger, and I write all this stuff down. I just told you about a incident happened to me this Saturday about
Right.
seeing a woman that nobody else saw because I was crossing some kind of a barrier, I think, and she was very strange. So I don't know, but have people out there recognized Katie Page by now? I mean,
No,
we got
no,
we
I'm
got
waiting for that moment.
we got
I doubt it'll ever happen.
we got a lot of people who like Skinwalker Ranch, and if you know that and the Skinwalker show after show, that's where Katie Page is at. Now you knew Dr. Leo
I
Sprinkle,
did.
and you did a book. I said, well, I not me, I didn't say this, but there's dedication to him, I guess, from you, Letter of
Mhm.
Love and Light. Could you tell us a little bit about that, Katie, before we start on pictures or anything?
All right. So before I got into ufology, I was really into the paranormal world because before there was kind of the known hitchhiker phenomenon, I had kind of put all these different, I compartmentalized the different experience that I've had throughout my life, whether it be ghost, paranormal,
Right.
or UFOs or Sasquatch or whatever. And so um, I joined MUFON in 2020 to find answers for my sisters and my family's experiences out in this Elbert County area of my childhood. And in 2013, I purchased a book called Hunt for the Skinwalker by Colm Kelly, her PhD, and George Knapp. It's right, I have it right here. I always have it on my desk right here. But this book right here, it's a great book.
Hmm.
And this is really before Skinwalker Ranch was that well known. It was well known, but not, it didn't have its own TV show and everything like it does now.
Was that
And in
during Bigelow's ownership of the property? Was that book?
Right. Bigelow owned both Skinwalker Ranch and Mount Wilson Ranch at the same time, which is really interesting to me. And the people, including Dr. Leo Sprinkle, they were out at Mount Wilson Ranch in the 90s. A whole Bob Bigelow, Leo Sprinkle, um, Greer, Linda Howe was out there too. Linda Howe actually got her start out in Colorado
Yes, she
at
did.
the Elbert County Ranch with all the mutilations, so we kind of have our origins together, which is really cool. So not this year at Contact in the Desert, although I saw her and talked to her at this year's. Last year I got to meet her for the first time at Contact in the Desert. And for me, that was coming full circle for me. And then this year I had the honor of sitting on the Women of Ufology panel with Linda Howe. So how cool was that? That was a very special moment for me
You know,
personally.
yeah.
Yeah.
Before she got into
Yeah.
cattle mutilations, she actually won an
Right.
award in journalism, and she did
Right.
a famine thing in Africa, a documentary. And so she's got
That's
a
right.
history in this. She's got a master's in communications, and
Yeah.
she's very, like I said, I talked to her for about an hour on the phone. She's interviewing me, and she's very sharp. She knows what she's looking for, and
Right.
she knows how to answer those two or three questions in a row that are just a little bit different, and then she can
Hmm.
find out the truth. And
Hmm.
I'm glad she come up. She said, "Okay, Dave, you're telling the truth. That's for real." I said,
Yeah.
"Good, thank you, Lynn." But she hasn't had liked my pictures that have been sent here, so we have
Well,
that.
I look, you bring up a good thing. I mean, I love watching Linda work, because so many people reach out to her, and she does. She's been at this for a while, so she knows exactly the right questions to ask,
Mm.
and she's not shy about asking. Like I was watching her interview somebody a year ago at Contact, and she's like, she was so polite and she's so gracious, and she's like, "What do you say to people that might think you're a little crazy?"
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I can't believe she just asked that. But it was a good question because the person had to answer, like, so she's kind of she's great and she's done fantastic work throughout her life. Um,
I can tell you,
but
my
anyway,
family knows her too, because they watched UFO. My family's had UFO experience space plane.
mhm.
96-year-old mother. She's had some. I'm gonna have her on the show. And but Linda called me one time. I was visiting my mom, and she called me, and I had it on speaker. And she said, "Dave, this is Linda. I wanted to ask you a few questions. One of my beliefs are a survey she was taking." And my brother, he was looking at. He said, "Is that Linda? Is that Linda?" I said, "Yeah." He gets his phone out and he says, "I need to record this." And
You're right. That's awesome.
come on. I said, "Linda's a great person." I said, "But I'm glad that we had that contact."
Right.
But
Yeah.
I'm interested in what going on with you tonight,
Right.
your show,
Yeah.
Katie, and we're talking about these people that are around you, and I know some of them. And but this Dr. Sprinkle, could you tell us a little bit about him and why?
Yeah, so I found out in the chapter Other Hotspots, this is where I learned when I was a little kid, having these experiences at the ranch, my sister and I and my mother, we were threatened and warned not to talk about what was happening on the ranch. And I'll get to that in a little while. So we never talked about it. I never knew anybody knew anything about it or that anybody investigated until I purchased this book. And this is where I learned of Dr. Leo Sprinkle for the first time. And he lives just a short 2.5 hour drive away from me at the time in Laramie, Wyoming. So I quickly wrote him a letter, old school, and he wrote me back confirming, yes, this is the location of your childhood, and it was investigated by APRO back in the day. And then also with John Schuessler, who is one of the founding fathers of MUFON, when he found out about my connection to the ranch, he quickly gave me a copy of the briefing document on the investigation. And that's where I found the direct quote of the scariest night on the ranch where we were threatened not to talk about what's going on. And like I said, we'll get to that in a
Now,
while.
does
Um, but
your parents believe in UFOs when they bought the ranch? And I know you moved.
Well, it's not so let me just so for your listeners that don't know. So my mom, I'm actually from Illinois like you. But in 1970 she was working for United Airlines as a key punch operator and computer operator for United Airlines, and they moved their training facility out here at Stapleton Airport in Colorado. So in 1970 we moved to Colorado, and my mother and father divorced in 1973. And then my mother met a gentleman at work. That guy, that gentleman, his name was Jack. He's since passed, so I'm okay saying his name now, I think. But he and his wife Betty were separated, and Betty had another interest in her life, and Jack was dating my mother, and they had 3 sons together. So the youngest 2 boys lived with us during the week to attend a large school district, which was the Cherry Creek School District. The oldest boy stayed at the ranch full time, and me and my sister would commute back and forth sometimes on the weekends to take the boys back to see their mother. We even had Thanksgiving together, so it wasn't like a bad situation. Like Betty and Jack were still talking, and like I said, we had Thanksgiving dinner together. We'd go see them on the weekends, and every time we would visit the ranch, strange things would happen. And this went on for a 3-year period. Like you had mentioned, Linda Moulton Howe, she was out there investigating the ranch rash of cattle mutilations, which inspired her award-winning film A Strange Harvest. She actually interviews Bill Wall, the undersheriff out there of Elbert County, in her film, along with George Yarnell, who was a sheriff out there in Elbert County at the time. So like I said, we kind of have our roots at the same place, and come to find out through Dr. Sprinkle's file, she actually lived just a few miles down the road from us when I was growing up. Linda did. So that's a pretty cool thing. But long story short, there were 3 different PhDs out there that are mentioned in Hunt for the Skinwalker. Dr. Leo Sprinkle is one of them, along with John Durr, PhD, and Peter Van Arsdale, PhD. So there were multiple people out there researching this location. And to find that out after all those years that anybody knew anything about it, I mean, I was calling my sister on the phone, my mom on the phone. My mom is still with us. She's 92 years old. And yeah, we've had sightings when I was a little kid in Illinois, and actually Richmond, Illinois. And my grandfather, who was in the Navy and the Mason, he lived in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. He had a sighting over Lake Como, Wisconsin, that was investigated by J. Allen Hynek. So as you probably know, Dave, that oftentimes these things tend to run in families, and that's definitely true in my case.
Yes, my brother
Yeah.
have seen them, my mother, and she's
Yeah.
96, and I saw most of my UFOs in Illinois. I went out
Yeah.
west a lot of times, out Sedona and everything, but I saw
Right.
all of my UFOs up close to here in Illinois, and that's strange. I mean, it's you don't have to go after, you don't have to go to another state to find them. They're right in your
Right.
backyard.
Yeah.
Now this thing with the Dr. Sprinkle, you wrote about him and you said love and peace with this guy. He must have been a very nice guy on top of that, Katie.
Well, he would sign all his letters, Love and Light Leo, and that's where the chapter of the book came from. So, in a nutshell, this is how this happened. So, selfishly, I drive to the archives in Laramie to get all the documents on the Colorado Ranch. But what happened is he has over 70 boxes of his lifetime's worth of work. People wrote to Dr. Sprinkle from around the world. And
Mm.
so I would go and spend days in the archive. I'd take hundreds of pictures of people's letters, and I got lost in the letters because, he has over 40 years in the field. And so not only is he talking to his counterparts like Linda Howe and all sorts, and even going back and forth with Phil Klass, who was a famous, well-known debunker at the time. So I have those letters going back and forth. And Leo was old school, and he would type and he would keep all the copies of his response letters. So for me, it became this mission of, going back and seeing how Dr. Sprinkle was looking at the phenomenon and what the experiences were saying. And actually, I lucid dream a lot. And
Well,
how we get ideas in our dream. And this book came, Letters of Love and Light came to me in a lucid dream because I thought if I find these interesting, I think other people will too. So I spent 3.5 years pulling out the kind of juicy parts of those letters, and I organized them into chapters. So it's all the correspondence that Leo received through the decades and his responses. So there's letters from children's, there's UFO craft descriptions, ET descriptions. There's one on hypnosis. Something people wrote about a lot was having the most vivid dream they've ever had. So they were writing Leo letters saying, was this a memory or was this a dream? So one of the chapters is memories or dreams, different things like that, implants, ET motives, channeling, that kind of thing. So it was really cool to see over a 40 years span the commonalities of things that people would talk about. There was even a really early pre-Travis Walton Snowflake, Arizona possible abduction way back that I had encountered in Dr. Sprinkle's archive. So it was a really, really cool time. And of course, every time I'd go back to do the research, I would spend time with Leo. We'd go to dinner or have lunch or just sit in his office. And he
great.
did put me under hypnosis for an hour and a half. And that was an interesting experience. But he was just so loving and giving of his time and spirit. Like, he would invite you in his office, never charged you anything, and would just spend all the time, 2, 3, 4 hours, whatever. And he was just a gracious, giving man. So,
You mentioned lucid dreams, and I've had lucid
mhm.
dreams, and that's where I've seen some things, and I've written them down. They're in my first book. But I just talked to Craig Cobblebassel, and
Yeah.
the filmmaker, documentarist, and he's been around a lot of big shots, Spielberg, and all of them. And I mentioned it was a lucid dream, and he
Right.
stops. He says, "Wait a minute, wait a minute." He said, "Lucid dreams." He said, "They're not dreams." He said, "Those are real." I said, "Really?"
Mm,
He's about the third scientist who said lucid dreams are real. It's what
really?
you really went through the actions. He said, because you meet the people that you're dreaming about, you're touching things, and you may be even saying things, but they don't understand you. Like I was speaking
Mhm,
to an ET, but she didn't understand me, but just looked at me. But those are lucid dreams. I've
mhm.
been getting information from all these researchers I talk to that don't discount lucid dreams. They're real.
Hmm.
So that's
That's
good,
interesting.
good
As
news.
it was always like growing up, I have grown adult kids now, but it was kind of a joke with my ex-husband and and even still, I'm like, I sometimes won't want to wake up if I'm having a bad dream, and I'll
Mhm.
go, wait, I got to go back in and redream a dream or go back and change the dream. So I'll be aware of that sometimes in the middle of the night where I'll go back and I'll know something's going wrong in a dream, and I'll go back in and I'll change the dream.
Yeah.
So I have a better outcome in the future. And sometimes if you get a really strong deja vu and
Right.
it's have you ever had those deja vus where you're like, I know something bad's about to happen. And
Yeah.
in that flash of a moment, there's a movie like that. I think it's Men in Black, where he's at the baseball game and he's like, this is the one where this happens, and this is the one where this happens. It's kind of like that. And I'm like, oh man, I hope this isn't the one where something bad happens. And this is the one where something, nothing bad happens. And so I've had that experience quite a bit. It's kind of interesting thing. And it makes me think about reality of itself. Are we living in a matrix or, a, not a base reality?
Hologram or
Yeah,
something.
hologram,
I,
yeah,
now, do
video game.
you ever feel invisible when you're around people? Like my car, in the last couple of days in my car, I was in the parking lot and some older guy was backing up and he was backing up right into me. And
Oh, no.
I had to
I
move.
think he's probably distracted. People
I
are
know.
so distracted nowadays.
But today, when I come back waiting 4 hours for my car in my dealership and spending a lot of money, oh my goodness, bad day, bad day. But
Right.
I was coming out and making a turn, coming directly home, and there was a car turning into me.
Oh,
He
no.
honked at me. He was going the wrong way. I saw it was the dark blue car, and I looked at him and said, "Where's he going?" He's going the way I was coming out, and it was a 2 lane road there, a 3 lane at the stop. But he was going the wrong way, and he honked at me like I was the one wrong. I said, "Where am I at?" I thought,
Oh,
okay,
no.
I'm invisible, but no,
Oh, no.
you got into this Rocky Mountain Ranch, and you call it that. And what does this all comprise of, Katie? The Rocky Mountain Ranch, how many acres is it, and how large is it?
Well, it's important to note too that, I mean, it's a 60-acre ranch. And back in the day, during the APRO report and the Linda Howe days, so from 75 to 78 and going forward, the townspeople, this is a small town in Elbert County, Colorado, and in the APRO report, it was dubbed the Clearview Ranch. And I could show you some pictures here later on. I could share some screens of some newspaper articles back in the day, but because they didn't want the publicity of the town. They didn't want people going to the town. And so for years, and even in Hunt for the Skinwalker, the location was not known. So it was kind of Katie and her big mouth talking about, no, it's in Elbert County, Colorado. It's important to note, though, that the phenomenon, this was what was cool for me and why I've been researching it for so long. This stuff isn't just isolated to the one ranch property. This spans the whole county of Elbert County and other locations in Colorado as well, just like the famous Snippy the Horse and Alamosa and the San Luis Valley. That whole area is a hot spot. Colorado Springs, obviously, we have many military bases here. We get a lot of sightings here. But the high strangeness stuff in the Black Forest in Elbert County has been going on for decades. And it affects, I have an Excel spreadsheet of over 250 names of people that have experiences out there. A lot of those were pulled from newspaper articles from back in the day.
Mm. I was at Alamosa, and the worst thing that happened to me, I didn't know, was 7,500 feet elevation, and it's a
Yeah.
how high Denver is. And I got
Gotta
used to
stay
that.
high.
Yes.
Gotta stay hydrated up
Yeah, I
here.
know. But when
Yeah.
I got my bags into my room, I thought I was going to pass out, but nobody told
Mm,
me that it was at that high elevation until that
right.
and I ran into a waitress who was a nursing student there. They got several colleges there in Alamosa,
Yeah, they do.
and she
Yep.
told me, she explained it to me about how the blood produces more, I think, red blood cells than white blood cells, and you get a little weak, and you got
Yeah,
to.
and you get headaches and all sorts of things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I went out there
Dizzy.
on that lookout spot. You know where the sand
The
dunes?
UFO watch too.
Yeah.
UFO watchtower, Judy. Yeah.
Could you
Wonderful.
could you tell us about that, since I've been there? You might know a little bit more about it.
Well, if you're ever out in the area of Alamosa or you go to the Great Sand Dunes out there, stop by and see Judy at the UFO Watchtower. She's a wonderful person. She has a wonderful little store, and you can go sit and do some sky watching up there. It's a campground.
Mhm.
So it's a really good place to visit.
No, she was really nice. I was the only
Mhm.
person there at that time.
Yeah,
She
it's not,
talked
it's
to
kind
me.
of cool. Yeah.
But you said that was an incident with a horse. Is that the first incident where the horse was mutilated, Katie?
Yeah, Snippy the horse, which the name is actually Lady. Actually, on this Saturday, there's a gentleman, Joseph Spencer, that we're going to be interviewing face to face. He is an elderly gentleman. He's in a rehab right now because he broke his femur. So, but
Mm.
he's doing rehab right now and doing better. So good for him. And we're going to go there and interview him because he was one of the first 3 people at the site of the Snippy location. He's like, I want to get all the facts on record and get it right because I was there. So I'm super excited to go do that interview this weekend with him.
Yeah, Debbie Ziegelmeyer, she's the MUFON director here in Missouri, and
Right.
her brother worked as a sheriff there in that area, I believe, and
Yeah, Chuck.
yeah, he covered some cattle mutilations. I never met him, but I met
Right.
Debbie. But getting into this more, would you like to start showing pictures as we're
Yeah, I could kind of walk through. It's
sure.
interesting. I've given this presentation, it's morphed through the years. I have a 3-hour version, a 2-hour version, a 1-hour version, and now I have the newer version because I'm learning more. So one of the things that I've really been fascinated about and trying to answer the question of, because when I went to Dr. Sprinkles to get the archive documents on the ranch, it was apparent right away that there was a military presence visiting this property.
Mhm.
And we know that, a matter of fact, going through some of John Schuessler's archives and books that he bestowed upon me a while ago, I came across an original document of this. It's called The Choppers and the Choppers.
Yeah.
And this phenomena of these marked out helicopters that were out there in the area. I mean, there's fascinating reports in here, and they did a really comprehensive study. How many in the day, how many at night, on and on, with maps and the different states that were affected and whatnot. So I actually think I might have a slide of that in my presentation, but to actually have the copy of that was really cool.
Katie,
But let me share my screen. Yeah,
your,
go ahead.
your bottom line on cattle mutilations or animal mutilations, there's a lot of people who come up with different theories. Number one,
Right.
it's occults or devil groups, or
Hmm.
there's the military secret ops, or there
Right.
are there ETs.
Right.
What is your summation, Katie, of this phenomenon?
All of the above. And I think the satanic cult theory is a very, very, very teeny tiny percentage of that.
Mhm.
I mean, that was a big theory in the 70s. I think we could safely rule most of that theory out the door.
Right.
One of the coolest interviews I did. So there's a family that has a long history and long generation in the town of Kiowa in Elbert County, Colorado, where the ranch is located. And so I drove to Wyoming because she lives there now, and I was talking to her about an experience she had in Rama in the late 70s. She had gotten married right out of high school, as we often did in that generation.
Right.
And her husband was on horseback checking the cows for calves, came across a dead calf, and it had 4 cuts in a perfect square with the top of the fur removed, but the skin was still there, she said. And I think I have the picture of this I could share with you guys. And he goes back and he gets my witness, and they drive back in the pickup truck. She said it took about 20-25 minutes. When they got back, that calf had been mutilated, cauterized, all the blood drained. And what was cool is she messaged me on Facebook and said, "Hey, Katie, I found the pictures." So she sent me the picture of the calf mutilated, and she had a picture of what a calf looks like when a coyote kills it. And she said they're miles off the county road. There were no other tracks in the dirt around this mutilated animal. No helicopter noise. They said it felt like eerie, like they were being watched. Since then, one of the questions I had too in researching the ranch is this stuff still going on today? And in fact, it is. I'm doing interviews as we speak with Rocky Mountain Ranch. Now, I just yesterday released my second interview on YouTube under Rocky Mountain Ranch Research with Katie Paige. And the audio, we got new audio equipment. We even got a drone. So the audio is pretty bad. We had an unexpected windstorm. So I'm getting comments like the audio, I tried to clean it up the best I could in Adobe Premiere Pro. So just bear with me on this first couple videos that I did. The quality is going to get better now that we have new cameras and equipment. But you can go to that channel and actually see this elk hunter's experience that he had
Yeah,
just
I'll put
recently.
that in. I'll put that in
Yeah.
the narrative on
Yeah.
the video.
This was in November of 2021. A very credible ex-firefighter elk hunters out there in Elbert County. He's coming back, walking back to his truck, and he sees this in the tree line, an orange glow, and he said it looked like 2 bunt cake pans spinning counterclockwise on top, clockwise on the bottom, shiny silver, 6 to 8 feet off the ground, way back in the tree line. He watched it for like 10 seconds and then it vanished. No noise, no nothing. He has no idea what it was, what it's doing there. So the video that I just released on Rocky Mountain Ranch YouTube is of the interview with this gentleman. And we actually go to the site where he had this encounter.
Mhm. Yeah, a lot of
So
people might know
things are
you.
still going on. Mutilations are still going on.
A lot of people might know you from your YouTube. presentations also. So there's
Yeah, it's just starting. So I'm hoping to get them out more and more and more. And like I said, we have better equipment now, and we're doing the fast learning curve. So just bear with us as they improve. But yeah, I want to do the Rocky Mountain Ranch research because I feel like I want to just take everybody along with me and do what I do. Go out on site, go do the interviews and get it out there for everybody to see and judge for themselves what's going on. I don't have the answers. I don't know how much of it is black access military projects and how much of it is actually unexplained UFO phenomenon.
yeah, we're not really sure what's the difference
Right?
between angels, ETs, poltergeist, and ghosts. And
Exactly.
we don't know the
Exactly.
difference. They all come from another dimension. But Katie, I don't want to. We're talking to Katie Paige and this strange reality with Dave Emmons. I usually take real quick commercial breaks, and that's it right there. but
Okay.
but Katie, you have some pictures you want to start showing. I guess people are
Yeah, I can
always love
walk
pictures.
you through this.
Yeah,
Yeah, these are just a few that I can kind of walk through here. Let's see what I do there. I'm gonna do this, do this. Did I not hit the share button? Let me go
yeah, you got
back.
it. Yeah,
Share.
there you go.
There we go. And let me make this bigger here. Okay. Can you guys see that okay?
There it is. Like we can
There
see.
we go.
Okay.
Okay. This is just kind of how I open up. It's just talking. These are copies of some of the newspaper articles. I flew to Florida to interview the widow and the son of Bill Waugh, who is in Linda Moulton House's Strange Harvest. And she pulls out this big, thick folder filled with newspaper articles. And these are just some of the headlines, but I wrote a list of some of the commonalities to Skinwalker Ranch. One of the first things reported on the ranch were these strange humming sounds and bangs underground. Now, where this ranch resides is in the Palmer Divide, and the Palmer Divide is, creates some very strange weather here in the Front Range of Colorado.
Right.
And in the report, the briefing document, it talks about these hums would get more intense during windstorms. So maybe some of these hums they're hearing have to do with the Palmer Divide and the winds circulating around there, kind of creating the cyclo of wind sounds. But there were also strange noises and bangs from underground. And that kind of begs the question, were they tunneling or what's going on under the ground there? The Titan missile silos are not that far away. So, one of the questions I have, of course, the mutilations of not only cow, but horse, sheep. We even found articles of dog out there. And people were arming themselves, getting really fearful that they would turn to humans next. So, the governor of the state was involved, and it was very well publicized, many articles back in the day. The circles on the ground, that's one of the memories my sister and I have. And that's actually tonight on the History Channel on Beyond Skinwalker. They talk about the landing site. That's where the big circle on the ground was when me and my sister were out there flipping the frisbee.
Mhm.
It was a wet, heavy snow day in Colorado, but under our feet was dry dirt where nothing grew in this perfect circle. And it's in the report as well. And it was cool to see in the report because I'm like, oh my gosh, there it is. It was 75 feet in diameter. And in the report, it talks about there were drops of blood in the snow outside the dry, snowless circle. So, and we're getting a lot of strange anomalies when we're shooting the rockets over this site and when they're doing ground penetrating radar, and just strange things are happening there. So that's what that is. Of
Just like
course, the
yeah.
craft and
Yeah,
go
just
ahead.
Skinwalker Ranch. So they got these rockets and these lasers, and they change direction and everything. And tonight, when I
Right.
watch you on history on this after the Skinwalker thing, I'm going to point at the TV and my wife and say, "I know her. I know her."
We just talked today.
Yeah, we just
Right.
Katie.
And that's tonight is going to be about the circle where I encountered that circle on the ground, and they called the episode the landing site.
Yeah.
And that's what that is. And that's where they're having the rockets have these strange anomalies. And it's just a lot of different things. Of course, the Sasquatch creatures out there that were menacing, banging on the walls, seen quite often there, which is also interesting. The first season, when we're out there in the snow and these tracks just come out of nowhere, disappear into the ground and come back, you see the tracks and then disappear again. What is that? That was kind of interesting. Crypto creatures were reported out there, like these strange large birds, phoenix type things, pterodactyl types animals, paranormal activity, menacing blacked out helicopters, as reported in what I just shared with you, the choppers and the choppers.
Now,
military presence for sure.
I want to get your impression, Katie. I know that, since you're close to this, where do you think these Bigfoot creatures and cryptid creatures are coming from? Are they coming from through a dimensional port? Or are they coming with the UFOs, Katie?
That's up for debate, right? Stan Gordon has a great book about that on the Pennsylvania Bigfoot, and a lot of those kind of go hand in hand with the UFOs. And I don't know if they're ETs themselves, if they are bodyguards or workers, or I don't know, but oftentimes they're seen together, but sometimes they're not. So again, is it a mixed bag? Is it, are they interdimensional beings? Because sometimes you'll hear people spotting these things and they disappear in a ball of light.
Yeah.
Or like in my case out there for season 1, I didn't hear him, I didn't smell him, I didn't see him, but there were tracks coming out of nowhere, disappearing and then coming back. And then, so what is that? Are they materializing and then dematerializing? Do they have the ability to do that? And really, we can only just see such a small sliver, with our five senses. We're just seeing a little bit. So maybe they just reside right outside of what we're able to process and see. I don't know the answer to that. It's just a
Well,
theory. I don't know, but
ETs can be invisible. They were invisible in my house, and I was able to pick them up on my tri-field meter with the magnetic sources. But and it would just beep and beep and beep. But they can be in your house and they're invisible. They can walk through walls, and I think our military even has some of that technology now. And I notice you have military presence and menacing health.
right. Yeah.
Could you tell us
Yep. Yep.
about that, Katie?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I talk about, I don't know if it's in these slides or not that I have on here, but in Dr. Leo Sprinkle files, it says Warren, and his last name was redacted out, from Camp Carson, visits the ranch. Camp Carson is in Colorado Springs. So question number 1, why is there a soldier visiting the ranch? He felt something wrong. He wouldn't go into the woods. Something took over his mind, made him walk towards the wood, then would release him. And this did this to him 5 times. So it would release him. He'd run back to the ranch house, and then something would take over his mind. It would make him walk towards the woods again. We had these strange disappearing boxes. And I'm seeing more and more information about these boxes. And that's something I'm really digging into a lot here lately. What are these things? Are they ours? Are they theirs? What are they? What do they do? Here you can kind of see a picture of this mysterious helicopter sighted an area, but here's this mysterious mysterious blanket of metal found. That was out there in Elbert County. There's a photograph of it. In the article, it states that this was taken and tested, and who knows where it is. I wish I could find it. So many different things happening out there. Here, yeah, this was what was in the report. It said, we stopped at the area where the UFO had been sighted. It was a large, perfectly round circle with only small patches of snow on it. The snow around the outside of the circle was at least 4 inches deep. There was a drop of blood on the snow just a few inches outside of the snowless circle. So the landing site that they're going to talk about on Beyond Skinwalker is the landing site. That's where that circle was. And again, me and my sister were out there. The sun was shining. It was a nice Colorado spring day. We're flipping the Frisbee and we looked down and there was that large circle. And we both remember it very well. So
Is there a
that's
reason why
interesting.
it's reddish color circle?
No, that's just a recreation I made just to graphically kind of show it, but it was just brown dirt,
Okay.
you know. So this is in the briefing document. This was the scariest night on the ranch for us. Me and my sister, my mom, and the boys were all there celebrating the boys' mother's birthday. The adults were playing board games in the front room, and me and my sister and the boys were hanging out in the back room in the corner when that humming sound started up. And every time the humming sound started up, something was going to happen. It like puts you on edge. All the power in the house goes out. That's when I spotted the brightest light. I say it's like the sun, brighter than the sun outside their window. It was there for a short time. And that's when this disembodied electrical sounding voice came out of every orifice in the house. Now the power's out, yet we're hearing this voice. Now, since this time, I've been looking at what they call plasma ball technology that they were possibly developing during this time. Who knows? I'm trying to research this, but it's basically, it kind of sounds electronic. It sounds very reminiscent. I have a video of what it sounds like in one of my presentations, but it sounds very reminiscent to me of when I was a child on the ranch. And basically they want to use this technology to pipe out human sound. So it sounds like you're closer than you really are. And the soldiers can stay back more in safety, right? Get out.
Mhm.
kind of thing, right? And that's what this sounded like. It was attention. We have allowed you to remain. We have interfered with your lives very little. Do not cause us to take action which you will regret. Your friends will be instructed to remain silent concerning us. And that's a direct quote from the APRA report from back in the day. And when I saw that, and I'm on the phone with my sister and my mom, I'm like, oh my gosh, do you remember this? It was terrifying, terrifying. After that happened, I lived about an hour away from the ranch, 45 minutes to an hour, depending on traffic. But when I got home that night after this experience, I walked in the front door of my house, I collapsed on the ground, and I couldn't speak. I was like paralyzed. And my mom and my sister were like, what did you eat? What did you eat? And I was trying to talk and I couldn't. This lasted a couple minutes. They got me upstairs to my bedroom and I had my first full-blown migraine headache. Tunnel vision, the whole 9 yards. I suffered them severely for quite some time after that experience. So much so that I ended up going to a biofeedback training for a year, where, they put the things on your fingers and the head and you would learn to relax your muscles and all that stuff. So
Mm.
that started that night for me, and it was a
Was that
really terrifying night.
a microwave attack, you think, or something?
I don't know, but something that didn't make episode 1, when I went back to the ranch for the first time that night of that snowy night that you see,
Mm.
I could show you the pictures after, but it's like almost like a handprint on my back and it blistered. It was hot to the touch and they don't know if that was a radiation burn or something attacked me, but it was quite scary.
Oh, well,
So that happened on season 1.
yeah.
These are just some articles from back in the day. Clearview is close encounter, capital of the U.S. Does one town have UFO monopoly? The APRO bulletin report. Town has unusual amount of UFOs. So those are just some of the articles I found. How it calls it Clearview is kind of cool to see. This is just a
1917.
picture of, yeah, this is pictures of some of the letters and what the archives look like, and the book cover, Letters of Love and Light, Dr. Sprinkle's book. Here, this is right here. The red star is where the Elbert County Ranch is on a map. You got the Black Forest right underneath of it. And then over here, you have the Air Force Academy, you have Cheyenne Mountain NORAD, Fort Carson, you have Scrivener Air Force Base, you have Peterson Air Force Base, and also on here, it's kind of further down from Fort Carson, but you have Butte, which houses a very large um, collection of military helicopters, ironically. So that's interesting. And back in the 70s, the Air Force Academy property, actually, they did a lot of testing and things out near the Black Forest area and the Elbert County Ranch area. So again, it begs a question, what were they doing out there? This property sat vacant for 10 to 12 years, it says in the report. So if the military wanted to purchase the property to continue covert operations or experiments, why would they have not just bought it? And they didn't.
Hmm.
So that's when our family came in, and purchased it, my mom's boyfriend's family.
Katie, you
So
mentioned two types of ETs. What types of ETs do you think are here and doing this work on cattle, and also any other type of ET work that they do, Katie?
well, I personally haven't seen any of these ETs, but in the APRA report from the ranch, the adults that lived there said that they had two different types of ETs, and I think I have a picture. So let me get to that here real quick, and we'll go back to all this stuff. Uh, Wait, where are they? I think they're in here. Yeah, here we go.
Okay.
So the one on the right, the one with the tubes coming out like this, that was a sketch that was in Dr. Sprinkle's files. And you see the wrinkles on the forehead, the heavy brows, the bigger eyes, the wrinkles around the mouth, and the tubes. And then they have these really long, spindly arms and these legs. Uh-oh, hold on. And I'm getting a call at me in that. And back, gosh, this was pre-COVID, but at the time I was Colorado MUFON's guest speaker coordinator, and I'm sitting in the third row watching Sean Bartok, who wrote a great book called Flashbacks about his ranch experiences. Come to find out, his ranch was only 14 miles away from the ranch of my childhood, but we didn't know each other. We didn't know of each other's stories. And the drawing here with the tubes inside the neck, that's his drawing of what he encountered. I think they're very, very similar. The heavy brow, the wrinkles, the same shape eyes. And he said those tubes in the neck actually come out. So that is one type that was spotted here. Here is the full drawing from Dr. Sprinkle's files, and the one over here with the tubes out is Sean Bartok's drawing. So we didn't know each other. To me, that's pretty compelling evidence that something was going on. And I was at the grocery store and I got a copy of Popular Mechanics, or I saw a copy of Popular Mechanics, and they were talking about AI. And I thought, I wonder if these tubey guys are some type of AI, type of extraterrestrial. I don't know. And are they connected to these strange boxes? The other type that was claimed to be spotted there are the Nordics, these blonde, blue-eyed. And the argument possibly is the battle. It said they were in conflict with one another. Are the Nordics like trying to stay away from AI, and these 2B guys are merging with AI? Is that part of the deal? I have no idea. I don't claim to know. It's just a theory, but it's really interesting. Let me go back now to
Yeah, I think I
this
was on
is
a
that was
plane
a
with
really cool
a
thing.
tall,
So
tall Nordic.
here, these are this is Dr. Leo Sprinkle's handwriting here, and this was in his archives. And this is kind of is what brought the attention to me that, we know NORAD was aware of what was going on. So Bill Waugh, who is in A Strange Harvest, he says, undersheriff wants to talk to someone. He has seen ships going into the ground, boxes, mutilations being done. Nobody will talk, don't want investigation or publicity, hence Clearview. No stigma, credentials are an important factor. John would go back. John was the mother's boyfriend that owned the ranch. The three of them owned the ranch together. NORAD colonel said bluntly to forget about it and to shut up. Air Force head has a directive to handle UFOs and Bigfoot. And still to this day, in talking to some of the soldiers from Air Force Academy there in Colorado Springs, they still claim to have Sasquatch sightings along the ridge of the Air Force Academy there. So much so that it's talked about.
Yeah, I wonder if they have
You
any
know.
captive.
So, and even when I interviewed Bill Waugh's widow and his son, he was told to downplay the mutilation because people were up in arms, they were arming themselves, and they were just trying to downplay it and to forget about it, shut up about it. There was a no-fly zone put over the county for quite some time as they're trying to figure this out. Here's another thing that was in, this is the one I already talked about. Warren Blank from Camp Carson visits the ranch, felt something wrong, wouldn't go into the woods, something took over his mind, made him walk towards the woods, released him, and he would run back. This did this to him 5 times. So again, why do we have a soldier from Camp Carson on the property? It's really interesting. This was also in the document. And so I did some research on this. It says, let's see. I understand that 2 National Guard interceptors were up, it's redacted out, and went down while in pursuit of a UFO at night. All of this was a little unnerving, so I decided I was going to stop my own inquiry. I was going to just quietly mind my own business. That's a quote from Bill Waugh, the undersheriff. And so I found the information about the craft. I actually, Richard Doty, when I ran into him at the conference, I asked him 2 questions. I wanted to know if he was aware of the Elbert County Ranch back in the day, because he came in, I think, in 1977. He said that he was aware of it. And I asked him if he knew about these 2 A-7D interceptors that crashed. He said he did. And if I wanted information to send a FOIA request, which I did, and I got this big, thick stack. I mean, it's thick. It's
Yeah.
a lot of information.
Rich Doty,
But here's the
he knows,
highlights of it.
yeah, he knows both sides.
So supposedly this was an instructor and a student. They were scrambled out of Buckley Air Force Base over Elbert County. The instructor pilot misidentified the rotating beacon of another aircraft as the student's aircraft as one of the causes of the crash. So the instructor hits the tail wing of the student. Both pilots ejected, both pilots survived, but both of the interceptors were a complete loss. I found this interesting. It says, after sunset, Red Eye 32, I think it says, or 72, noted that 8 of his cockpit instrumentation lights were inoperative. The airspeed, the vertical velocity, the radar altimeter, the clock, the oil and fuel quantity, the fuel flow, and turbine outlet temperature. The cockpit utility light was used to illuminate these instruments. So that's interesting.
Yeah,
It says when
that
Buckley
military
Tower
research.
advised of conflicting traffic on final approach, and they don't go in, it's all redacted out. Then, so I did some research on the A7Ds back in the day, and I circled the instruments that went out, right, during this encounter. And my son, who is just getting very close now to graduating from Spartan Aviation College, he's getting his aviation mechanics. I just asked him, I'm like, what do you think these might have in common? And he said they may be affected by static electricity. So, oh, what does that say?
Do you hear me?
I can't see.
Yeah, you can't hear me, I don't think. Yeah, you can't hear me. Can you hear
Oh,
me
no, I
now?
don't hear you.
You don't. That's what I was wondering. I was
Uh-oh.
yeah. Uh, uh my, okay. You are muted. Press alternate.
Uh,
Unmute the microphone.
did I lose? Can you not hear me?
I can hear you, but I think I'm not heard. Well, my microphone says it is. Can you hear me now? Okay. Sorry about this, folks. We have these technical. All of a sudden, my audio is gone. Uh, okay. I don't see anything wrong here. Yeah, I don't see any. Can you hear me yet? Or
Okay, now talk.
yeah, can you hear me now? No, you can't hear me. Okay, should be okay.
I might have to, I think, hold on, let me do this.
Can you hear me now?
Okay, now talk.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you. Yeah, I think when my phone rang, it
Oh,
changed audio settings. So
okay.
I'm just gonna stay,
You have Bluetooth, right? Yeah.
yeah, I'm just
Okay.
gonna stay off of the Bluetooth. I'm
Oh,
sorry about that.
yeah, we're sorry about that, folks. That happens though. But I was going to ask you about these military people like Dick Doty. He knows quite a bit about both sides of this phenomenon, I think. Uh,
Mhm.
say no more.
Right. So did you want me to finish the share
Sure.
then?
Yeah, go ahead and
Okay,
finish it.
yeah, I apologize about that.
It's okay.
Let me go back here. Okay, so share. So were you able to hear me and I wasn't able to
Yes,
hear you? Okay, all right, then
I
I
was
don't need
able
to
to.
repeat myself. I don't need to repeat myself on that. Let me go. And this was also interesting. Since this is flying out of Buckley, which is now Space Force there, it also said that this aircraft had 218 rounds of live ammo in the gun systems. So I found that was interesting. And that's what those look
It
like.
doesn't say, yeah, those are big rounds.
Yeah.
What did they say was any shots fired? They had.
No, they didn't claim any shots fired, but there was a great deal that was redacted. But this crash happened on November 11th, 1975. So what's really interesting about that, I was doing some research at David Marler's, who has a National UFO Historical Research library out there outside of Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I know he's moving his huge collection. I mean, he has original Project Blue Book and NICAP, and he just acquired the original APRO. So I'm just chomping at the bit to get the unredacted versions
Oh,
of the
I saw.
Colorado Ranch stuff. So
Yeah,
I'll know what that
I,
last name is for Warren.
I
But I was doing some research there at David Marler's. You know David, don't you?
yeah, I saw David Marley's library when it was quite small. It was in
Yeah.
two small rooms, and he started off in Illinois, and he built it
Right.
up when he moved out to New Mexico. That's when he started getting all kinds of information. Yeah,
Right.
these are.
Yeah, he's an Illinois guy like us, and his book is fantastic on the triangles out there in Illinois. One of the best cases, I think. It's well documented by so many police officers and stuff. So David is out there doing great work getting all these collections, and I think history is just so important for this topic. But so I was there doing research. I love the 1970s for obvious reasons. And I come across this, I want to say it's 30 some pages. But there was an incident Early in the morning of November 11th, 1975, the Canadian Forces radar site at Falconbridge, Ontario, reported an object 25 to 30 nautical miles south of the site and ranging in altitude from 26,000 to 72,000 feet. So what they end up doing is they end up scrambling two F-106 Delta Dart interceptors out of Selfridge, Michigan Air Force Base over the Great Lakes after these identified craft or UAPs, UFOs on radar that were witnessed by many military men and women on the ground, police officers on the ground, civilians on the ground. This is a long report.
Mhm.
It's really interesting. That's the same day as they scrambled the jets in Elbert County. So we got two A-7Ds being scrambled. Now we have two F-106 being scrambled on the same day. And Dave here, this is a David's. I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, look, it made the front page of the National Enquirer. And he goes over to a file cabinet and he pulls it out and he goes, I bet I have it. Boom, he pulls it out. He has everything. Air Force scrambled jets to intercept UFOs. So it was one of the first times the military actually admits scrambling jets. That was that day. But guess what else happened that same day? 11/11,
Mhm.
1975 at 12:06 a.m., Travis Walton was found. He was returned early that morning.
Right.
And since then, in talking with Travis, I was talking to Travis at Contact in the Desert, and he's like, Katie, you know what else happened on November 10th, 1975, the day before all these jets are scrambled and Travis is being returned? The Edmund Fitzgerald goes down in the Great Lakes of Michigan. And as we know, I think there was a crew of 28 or 29. They never found anybody. I think a couple years ago, they found one person. So my heart goes out to all of the victims of the Edmund Fitzgerald, but the fact that all these events happened in a 24-hour period is quite fascinating. So November 11th, 1975, a very interesting date.
I met Travis Walton in Snowflake. I dropped by his house and visited him. He
Mm-hmm.
had a convention in Alamo, Nevada, and he's a real nice guy. He's very believable because you can tell in his demeanor he was very shook up about the whole incident. So he's got real feelings and real energy coming from this. Do you know more? Did he tell you more about what is he's doing now, Katie?
I'm not sure what he's doing recently, but I've talked to Travis, throughout the years. And, I find him, I always say, he seems like a haunted guy. Like this happened to him like it happened to me way back in the 70s, and it's never been able to escape him. It's affected his life in ways we can't even imagine. And I was just going to share with you guys out of the book in Dr. Leo Sprinkle's files. This was in box 20, folder number 31. The letter was dated March 13th, 1981. It was written out of Harold, Illinois, actually. It says, I'm a senior citizen now and not educated to your level. I have been a country preacher for many years now, but I am sure of the truth of these beings. 40 years ago, any story told about meeting UFOs would have been considered insanity. I would like to share with you an event that I have never been able to share before. It was a year between 1931 and 1934. Our bus had run through a small place that I believed to be Snowflake, Arizona. We rolled a short distance into the countryside and the bus came to a stop. To the left of us was a small clearing of woods where a small ship rested with lights gleaming and changing. The lights were mostly blue. I said to the driver, I believe I'll go over and see what that is. As I approached the craft, it was larger than I had thought, and the blue light seemed to draw me in, and it goes on from there. So an early 1930s Snowflake, Arizona sighting in his files. I thought that was pretty interesting.
They must
Uh,
have base there or something in Snowflake, the ETs. Who knows? Uh,
yeah.
I'm sure the audience is learning more about Colorado and Illinois having a lot of UFO sightings tonight because they usually say what states see the most, like California, New York, and a couple of the states, but they never mention Colorado much, or they mention Illinois much. But you have all kinds of stuff happening in Colorado, Katie.
Oh, for sure. And it begs the question, like, what do these areas have in common, right? Especially these areas of high strangeness, and something that I've been really digging into and others as well. Most of these areas are ping the charts of being highly magnetic areas. The vast majority of them have aquifers underneath, and we share certain altitudes and we share certain geology, whether it's quartz crystals, limestone, and whatnot. So is this a magical formulation? Are they looking for certain things? Also, there may be an elk connection to some of this stuff. We know with the Carl Higdon case, I believe it was 1974, out of Rawling, Wyoming, a hunter out elk hunting had an encounter. It's a really cool case. If you don't know about it, look it up. It's called the Carl Higdon case.
Oh,
Yeah, we don't need to talk about that.
that's you,
This
the little girl. Yeah.
yeah, this was me during the time of the ranch. Those were the years. That's how old I was during that. And these are just some of the physical symptoms, that I experienced back in the days. We kind of talked about it when I became paralyzed, the migraine headaches, ringing in the ears, recurring nightmares, shadow figures in the room, lucid, vivid dreams, extrasensory abilities. I felt for many, many decades a sense of being watched all the time. And I had a blue orb encounter.
Did you,
Um,
Katie, did you have the ringing in the air? Did it sound like crickets?
No, no, not crickets, but there were reports of like the boxes sounding like bees or angry bees, and of course the hum sounds, but never crickets.
Mhm.
Do you have the crickets?
Yeah, I have cricket sounds. In my abductions, I was almost electrocuted. The static electricity was so powerful. You can hear it
Oh my
snapping
goodness.
all over the place. Yeah. But the plasma, they produce plasma from electricity, or that's what their ETs are using. And when they hit you with that, like you said earlier, that you couldn't talk. Well, I had a moment when I had one incident I couldn't talk. I was with my cousin, he couldn't talk either, but that they dumbed us down. Well, what I call dumbed down, but what they're doing is either using some kind of a magnetic energy or some kind of a plasma electrical energy to kind of dumb you down and where you can't talk. All you can do is observe.
Oh,
Uh,
that's interesting. Yeah, because it was like mumbling. I just remember trying to like, oh, yeah, scary, scary.
and
Um,
this is one of the critters that
Well, this was an email I got from Bob Solis after a presentation, and he sat and watched my presentation. And the darker figure of the Sasquatch is again from Dr. Leo Sprinkle's files from what they were witnessing at the Rocky Mountain Ranch. And the one on the left, and he says, I will confirm to, I need my glasses. I will confirm to you that in 1996, I was in contact with the widow of, I took out the name Sands. Sands was a deputy sheriff for Cascade County, Montana, near Great Falls in the 70s. In one letter, she states, he also served on a special team secretly funded by the Department of Agriculture. That's another interesting clue, and I just haven't had time to do it yet. But Richard Doty told me, if you want to learn more about maybe the mutilations and some of the things that were going out, to send a FOIA to the Department of Agriculture for the United States Air Force. So I need to do that. So it's interesting he mentions it here as well. But the purpose of which was determine the cause of many cattle mutilations, UFO sightings, and Bigfoot reports. He was asked many times to take polygraph tests of airmen stationed at Malmstrom who had seen UFOs. In one letter, she states, I am an artist, and in 1977, so this is the same year as the ranch stuff, I was called to the sheriff's office to draw a picture of Bigfoot from an eyewitness who passed the polygraph. This is confirmation for your story. And then he recommended a book, Mystery Stalks the Prairie, which is a good book. But they're very similar in the noses, the eye shape, the scanty hair, and the way the mouth was drawn. And my mom, when I was a kid, she referred to them as white fuzzies.
like,
So it's interesting that in the APRA report, there's that quote, white fuzzies. And I'm like, oh, there it is from my childhood. And back in the day, they had a book series called TA for Tots where they talked about cold pricklies and warm fuzzies. And I think my mom called them white fuzzies because they had more of a gray hair.
mhm.
And I think she was trying to make them less terrifying for me. So that's what she called them.
Yeah, there has
Here's
been
the
reports of white Bigfoot. I guess they've reported them.
right.
Go ahead, Katie.
Yeah. And this is just a copy of that article we talked about earlier. The mysterious blanket of metal found in the field out there south of Rama in the area. This is dated July 3rd, 1975. Interestingly enough, one of the old cowboys from back in the day, his name's Carl. I won't give away his last name, but did an interview with him, and I just spoke with him on the phone. He's still a cattle rancher. He had many mutilations back in the day, and he's had some recent mutilations. And in talking with him, he was talking about he has cattle up here near my house here in Woodland Park. And for 3 years in a row, a few years back, he had a mutilation every 4th of July.
Mm.
Guess what I'm doing on 4th of July?
Yeah. Yeah, you're going to be there. Now that
I'm going to scout out the skies.
there you go. That picture down to the bottom right, it looks like fiber. Is that the metal?
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
It says close up of metallic pieces found in an alfalfa field south of Rama, Colorado. For a comparison of their size, note weeds growing up through the mass. So, I mean, this is a copy of the article, and I just don't know what happened to this sample. I would just love it. Looks very unusual. What do
Yeah.
you think of that?
It looked like fibers. That's what I first thought about it. It's some kind of a cloth or fiber, but it if it's metal, then it must have been blown apart or something or some kind of a big explosion or heat.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And we went over that. And this is so sorry for the graphic nature for those of you who are, um, but this is that picture I was telling you about from my witness, with the where it had the four cuts and then they went back. And this is what they came back to: cauterized, blood drain, nothing around the calf. And then this other one is what a calf looks like if a coyote jumps on it and just starts tearing at it. So you can
Oh, I can see
see
it.
the difference between a mutilation and the mutilations. Other animals won't approach it, bugs won't go on it. You'll get this cone of silence around you often when these are occurring. So a lot of strange things with these mutilations. Here's a close-up of my witness just recently that I did for Rocky Mountain Ranch, that second video there. Again, I apologize for the audio issues, but we went out to the site where he witnessed this just in the middle of nowhere spinning when he was coming back from an elk hunt. So that was interesting. Oh, and that's it.
That's it.
That's it. Stop share. There we go.
Okay, now there was when you were a young girl and you saw these, what first got you interested in them? There was an ET at a window, and you showed. Think there's some kind of a picture. Uh, Katie, did you see that ET in the window looking at you?
No.
Wasn't you?
I did not. I had experiences with like paranormal type things and these shadows that were in my room, most times in threes.
Right.
Um, and I was terrified. I slept with Big Sister all the time, and we'd put the bed against the wall, check under the bed, make sure the closet's closed. And anytime these shadows were either at my bedside or inside my door, I would just, boom, and not move. It's where you're so afraid you don't move a
Right.
muscle,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. But never do I recall seeing a ET face to face or anything like that.
Have you had any marks on you or any implants that you know of, Katie?
I don't talk about that much, but I have some marks, yeah. But I don't know what it is. I don't know what it means. I shared that with Dr. Sprinkle, and like I said, he put me under hypnosis. The interesting thing that came out under hypnosis, though, which I will talk about, is he put me under for approximately an hour and 20 minutes or so. And the first 20 minutes of, he records it, so I have the recording. It took me a couple weeks to listen back to it because I didn't want to hear what I said. But anyway, the first 20 minutes of me was like standing up to the adults. Like as a young girl, I was told not to talk about it. So in the hypnosis, I didn't want to talk about it. And I was like talking to Dr. Sprinkle about my mom and Jack and the other adults who were telling me to remain quiet. And once I kind of talked through that, then I was able to talk.
Mhm.
And there was one point through the hypnosis where my voice changed into kind of a little girl's voice, which was creepy. And I was like, and I wasn't scared, kind of like that. That kind of creeped me out. But I don't know. I just don't have any conscious memory of anything like that happening. Um, like so many other people, I'm like, I have these interesting dreams, but are they just dreams? And hypnosis is interesting too. I think it's a useful tool, but I don't always trust the memory of what's actually coming out of it. I don't know if it's my imagination or, so I don't necessarily trust that information.
You're thinking
That's
that
why I don't like talking about it that much. Yeah.
that's you're thinking it could be seeds planted when you get
Yeah.
hypnotized. Yeah, that happens a lot. Uh, Not a lot. I shouldn't say a lot, but it does happen. And a lot of people who are into hypnosis, they they stay away from planting a seed. They stay
Right.
away from the story and they try to just be neutral and go into this.
Right. And Dr. Sprinkle, if I'm going to have anybody hypnotizing me, Dr. Sprinkle was one of the very best and one of the pioneers. And so he never asked leading questions, so he was very good about that. And I haven't listened back to the tape for a few years now. I should revisit that and listen to it again. But it was an interesting experience to go through. And I don't know what to feel about all that part of it. Maybe, I've had other people come up to me and say, you're just not ready to go down that road, because I'm such a document research investigator driven person that I don't like to go visit all that other stuff. I just want to I
What
want to see papers and documents.
I want to read off some of your thoughts here, and because it kind of, I know a lot of experiencers probably would feel this too, but you wrote this that some we remember with great clarity, while others remain aloof and vague. Most experiences in our lives are ordinary and easily forgotten. Some are traumatic and painful, so we choose to forget. We're talking about that now. Others are extraordinary, and they remain the blurry bits of fragmented pieces, and we all have those, Katie. And we ask questions whether these remarkable events ever happened at all. You just mentioned that they remain dormant until the time comes when we're ready to journey back into the depths of our memories. We look for proof, any shred of evidence that validates that what we experienced was real. What often occurs is that we find ourselves searching for the missing pieces of this incredible, complex, multidimensional puzzle. Thus, quest often leads to some rather unexpected experiences, knowledge, and if we're lucky, to some rather fascinating people along the way. That I felt that. That's how
Thank you.
experiencers feel that way.
Yeah.
Bits and pieces and the puzzles that we help each other put together. And like I said, the scientists that I've interviewed, they've all come up with. They said if they said no, a lucid dream is real. That's a real thing that you went through, and that's so that kind of put the puzzle piece for me
Yeah.
together for it. What is the let's kind of slowly, I guess, move out of the show now. Let's ask you, what is your most dramatic experience that you've had, Katie, in your life?
Well, the couple, and I think we touched on them both, really, that one terrifying night on the ranch with the disembodied electrical voice. And I'm not saying it's extraterrestrial, could have been plasma ball. We could have been unwitting experiments to some military black ops project, but it was a terrifying night for me, and it's affected me my whole life.
Mhm.
The other really interesting thing that happened was those drawings and meeting Sean Bartok and learning about the commonalities in those beings. I think that's just like, even though I didn't see them, just the fact that they look so similar was like, holy cow, what is this? What is that all about? And then, of course, the hitchhiker phenomenon, it's with me all the time, no matter where I go. Paranormal things happen that I can't explain. So that's always a part of this as well. So there's just so many. It keeps me digging. And I was just recently on a podcast, and the host asked me an interesting question that nobody asked me before. And they're like, what are you hoping to find? Why do you keep doing this? What are you hoping to discover? And I really had never thought about that deeply before. And I think what's been driving me this whole time is because when I was little, we were told to not talk about it, but if I did try to talk about the paranormal stuff or the shadow figures or whatever was going on, you were told you have an overactive imagination, your mind's playing tricks on you, just, oh, you're making this up, whatever. And so you learn to shut down, and sometimes that can cause isolation and feeling like, am I the only one? And I think for me, documents and all this is so important because I need the proof that something was going on. Like, this happened to us. I wasn't crazy. It's happening to all these other people. And I want to feel like I'm not alone in this. And I really feel that's what's driven me to do what I do. And that's why Rocky Mountain Ranch Research, I'm like, I want to take all of you guys with me to figure this out, because nobody wants to feel alone or isolated, especially when they're dealing with the unknown.
Right. When I was 13 and 14 years old, and I saw my first two UFOs up close, and I saw one with my good buddy, and we're still buddies to this day. And I saw him really up close, only about 35, 40 feet above us. And when I saw that, and I told my parents and I told my schoolmates, they all laughed at me. So I shut down. I
Oh
just
yeah, you shut down.
we didn't talk about it no more. So
Yeah.
I understand where you're coming from there. And I did that. But now, the last 20, 30 years, I don't care. I'm
Right.
putting the truth, I'm putting it out there. And but okay, you're gonna be on I saw you on one of the after Skinwalker shows. uh, they were in your house, and you were there in the house with these researchers, right? It was,
The radio, that was my first time actually going back to the ranch, visiting the ranch for the first time since my childhood. So somebody else owns a property now, was actually out there a week and a half ago, four-wheeling in the back, and got to find the location where I encountered the box in the daytime. That was another thing that had happened to me. So people that own it now, very nice. And yeah, it's been a great experience. I'm really happy for Beyond Skinwalker because they're opening up all these other locations that have these similar kind of interesting paranormal, unexplained things happening at these locations. So I'm glad they're researching it like they are. And like I said, it'll be interesting to see how they piece this together, because what happens is, so one episode's like 44 minutes long, but they're filming for a whole week.
yeah.
And they got to get that narrowed down, and even further, because the first part of the show, they're briefing Travis Taylor and the team, and then the end, they're wrapping up with Travis Taylor and the team. So you got like maybe 30 minutes of footage, and so many different things are happening, and they're doing so many different experiments. So they got to get it into this short little clip. So it's always interesting to see how that comes together at the end.
Oh, this since this show's pre-recorded, I can't tell people that you're going to be on TV tonight pretty soon.
Right, right.
But there'll be reruns. There'll be the YouTube snippets and
Oh
things.
yeah, you can go back and watch it for sure. Yeah.
So yeah, that I want to welcome people to do that. And you've got a great past, and you're a great investigator. Like you said, that's what you're primarily doing. And
Yeah.
people have asked me kind of that question. And I don't usually pose that question because I know what you're doing. I
Yeah.
I guess maybe I should ask for the public, but I'm just curious, and I keep notes, and things still happen to me. Paranormal things. Do you have paranormal things happen to you, Katie? Look.
Yes, frequently, frequently. And I have found, and something I'm very interested in is this trauma disassociation piece.
Mhm.
And it's been researched for decades now, even to the early days of Freud, that people who disassociate from their bodies, whether it's through near-death experience, through meditation, through trauma, because when we have a lot of trauma, we, first of all, if you're growing up with somebody who is violent or alcohol or whatever, like my dad was an alcoholic, he was violent at times, you learn to read people really fast, and you learn to pick up subtle nuances. And I think that just does something to us. But when we disassociate, we tap into something else. And once we tap into something else, studies have shown that we have more paranormal type of activities or things in our lives. And you just have it because you've connected into it. So I find that a fascinating piece of the puzzle. And so I've been interested in that side of things.
Have you been to Sedona, Arizona?
I have. Yeah.
It's magical for me. I haven't been there for a
Yeah.
while. That's where
Yeah.
I met my first humanoid ET, and that's where I saw a dimensional thing happen that I can't explain. Several things happen, and people tell me down there this, well, oh, people see this kind of stuff all the time down in Sedona.
Mm.
It happens all the time. That veil is real thin. You can walk right through
Right.
it. I said, wow,
Highly magnetic place. It's one of those high magnetic,
yeah, it is.
I think the Bradshaw Ranch is out there.
Yeah,
Um, but
that's
yeah, it's one of those highly, highly magnetic spiritual places. So
Can you tell people where to look for you at? Your book is coming out. You have another book that you're writing.
I've been so busy lately. I'm hoping to get it out one of these days, but I have this new Rocky Mountain Ranch research. You can find Rocky Mountain Ranch Research.net, .org, or .com. It should all redirect you to the site, katiepage.net. If you want more information, you can reach me at either of those places. If you want to reach out, you can contact me there.
Yeah. And that new book, did you give the name out, or do you want to give the name out, or
No, I'm still working on it. You mentioned it the first part,
hey,
Rocky Mountain Ranch. Yeah. So I'm hoping to get that done within the next year.
this
It's
last
just, it's so funny because I started it and stopped it. I have 4 chapters done, and then Beyond Skinwalker came into my life. And I'm really happy that that happened because there's so much now more to add to the story. So it's like, you know, the powers that be made me wait
yeah.
because now there's just so much more research to add
Don't,
to it.
don't feel lonely there, because I first 3 books in just a little over a year. And then my fourth book, it's taken me a year because I had so many family illnesses, so many things.
Right. Life gets in the way.
Yes, podcasts, a lot of podcasts.
Yeah.
But people listen, take it, once you read, they see this, and check out, you know, Katie Paige, YouTube, and I'll Skinwalker Ranch, and after Skinwalker Ranch, and and tonight. We'll make mention of that show in the narrative, but it'd be a little late for people to catch on to that. But
Right.
I want to thank you, Katie Paige, for and living in beautiful Colorado. It's beautiful there. I know it is. I've been there many times. But I want to thank you for being on the show, and thank you for and all the research that you're doing. And I think it's great. You're doing a great job, and you deserve a lot of recognition.
Oh,
I think soon
thank you.
you're gonna get it. You're gonna get your recognition. Katie Paige, thank you for being on Strange Reality with Dave Emmons. Thank you and good night.
Thank you, Dave.